Welcome to another edition of the Skyhook. I am your host, James Kay, and right now you are listening to the podcast version of this show. If you want to contact anyone involved with the show, you can always do so at the skyhookmailbag@gmail.com, or you can tweet at me, and my handle is James_M_KAY, or you can also tweet at the show's Twitter, which is, well, the handle for that is @Skyhookin. Folks, this was a really fun show to do. I had a fun conversation with Chris Pennant, who does some work with Regal Radio, and we actually worked at the same sports blog for a little bit. We didn't even know it at the time. But, we had a good conversation. We didn't get a chance to talk about last night's game, Sky Liberty, which was an absolute bloodbath, but we didn't talk about it because we recorded it yesterday night during the game. So we'll see some similar themes in our conversation about last night's game, honestly. It feels like it covers it. Just can't believe the Sky need to claw back in every game they win, I feel like this team just hasn't reached its ceiling, but we're going to see it soon, I hope. But I'll let me and Chris's conversation carry my opinions the rest of the way with this. So without further ado, Mike, cue the intro. So, Chris, the Sky's bench all season, they've just been tearing it up. They are fourth in the league in bench points per game. And, they lead a balanced attack of, front court players that can bang down low, or just they have those nifty guards that can attack the rim at any point. However, I kind of wonder with this team that, I wonder how long that they can go without some of the starters consistently reaching their potential this season. And I don't know, with all of that said, do you think that this method of relying on the bench so heavily, can that be sustained the rest of the way as they try to make a playoff push?
I think so. Ultimately, the people you have coming off the bench are still relatively young players. Cheyenne Parker's in her, I believe, third season. It's Gabby Williams' second. Kalia Copper's been in the league for, I believe, either three or four seasons. And those players, it's not like they have a ton of mileage on their odometer. Now, we all know that WNBA players are playing overseas, so they're basically on a year-long schedule, so they're going to have a lot more playing time with a lot more travel than if you would compare them to other pro players. But in terms of just in this league, at this level of competition, they have not put in a ton of time on the floor. So it's not like they're going to wear down at the end of the season. The difficult thing is that the Sky really do need their starters to be successful to win. There's a lot of teams that can lead a balanced attack. But I think just throughout the WNBA, teams need those top five or top even three or four players to hit on most nights, if not every night, for their teams to be successful. If you look at the Mystics, have probably 6 or 7 players who could crack a starting lineup and be effective, at least be league average. The Aces have players like that too. De'Erica Hamby's coming off the bench. She could probably start for a few teams, more than a few teams in the WNBA. But most other teams, the starting group is their best group. Now, Cheyenne Parker's been great for the Sky this year. She's cooled off somewhat after the first couple of months of the season where her advanced metrics were really good.
Yeah.
Kalia Copper started to heat up the last couple of months just after getting more playing time, and that's probably just a result not only of her skills, but of Coach Wade seeing that she was doing well and putting her in the lineup to take advantage of her energy, her athleticism, and her defensive intensity. And then Gabby Williams is still kind of working through the growing pains of playing multiple different positions, but she's another player who, when she makes a great play, it's obvious how good she is. And then you have Jameer Faulkner coming back, and Katie Lou Samuelson finally getting a little bit of time, and Stu and Doer finally getting some time on the floor as well. But those aren't necessarily a starting group. So going to mix with the starters, that benches. But for the Sky, the starters are what makes the team go. Vandersloot and Quigley and Dolson and Lavender and Diamond DeShields. That's what they need to be successful. The bench contributing is always great, but they beat the Fever and the bench only scored, I think, 8 points a couple of weeks ago. So as good as the bench has played and as much as they are a benefit to the team, it's going to be the starters that make the difference on if they get to the playoffs and where they end up in the playoff seeding.
I could not agree more, because I think this is a dangerous formula with like what they're rolling with, and I think that it can kind of work in the regular season, but I don't know. I went back and looked at all of the box scores and like from this season, like that the Sky and all the games the Sky have played in, and I mean they have trailed against their opponents going into the second half in half of those games that they've played this year. So I mean, I think that says a lot about their resilience as a team, but I'm sure that everyone on that team prefers not having to show that resilience night in and night out. And pummeling your opponents and like winning handily is something this team has only experienced a few times this season, and it's exhausting being the team that has to work for it every time they go out. So, I mean, they are talented enough to like keep this going in the regular season, but like come playoff time, I'm with you. Like, I'm not sure that this is going to hold up. And as much as I love the personnel on this team, they show flashes of potential like every game. Someone shows like that they are going to be a future WNBA contributor. They're going to be like a constant WNBA contributor. I just don't think that they can claw back into these games and and do it every time in the playoffs when you play the better teams in the league. It's just a very hard thing to accomplish. And you can also argue that like you said, like the starters really haven't hit their peak as a unit. And so maybe this team can make some noise later down the road. But yeah, I mean, you got to wonder like if we're ever going to see this 2019 team really, start hitting it on all cylinders here. I can't think of one game this season where both Diamond DeShields and Allie Quigley have gone off at the same time. And I mean, that's a theme I've gone over with this podcast, especially, is just, can those two get it done together? Is Diamond DeShields consistently going to be the superstar offensive player that we kind of expected her to be going into the season? So I just want to see both, Quigley and Diamond get it together a little bit. But yeah, I think we both agree that this bench really can't keep this team afloat the whole way. But is there anybody on the bench that you expect to step it up more in the second half of the season, or if you want to call it a second half, but the last third of the season?
Well, I love what Kalia Copper, she's doing, what she does, what she brings to the table. She and Diamond are both of those slasher-type players who can get to the basket or put the defense in a difficult position. I mean, they are scorers. Diamond's primary function out there is to score and to put pressure on the defense, especially on the fast break, with their speed, with their athleticism, and with the relative height, and just strength of being able to finish. So I love what Kalia Copper does, and on the other side of the ball, she puts pressure on offense. If the Sky can work, if they can trap the ball towards the sideline, that's a lot for a defense to try and pass out of, to try and keep their offense running in the half-court set. If you trap the ball on the half or on the sideline by the wing or the high post with Copper, DeShields, or even Gabby Williams too, that's going to give a lot of threat of a turnover, or just take a lot of seconds off of the shot clock. So I want to see her keep doing what she's doing. That'll put the Sky in an even better position. But what Cheyenne Parker was doing in terms of rebounding early in the season, I want to see that come back. A lot of people have talked about how she's made changes away from the court in her diet and her preparation and how she practices, and that is absolutely fantastic, and it was evident. But she's really slowed down before the All-Star break and now a little bit after. So what she was doing in May, that's really necessary. There's not a lot of teams that can bring great rebounding off the bench, but the Indiana Fever have Tierra McCowan, and that's going to be a lot for a lot of teams to handle. But Cheyenne is one of the players who can really bang with a player like McCowan down low, and other teams who have quality rebounding. Cheyenne Parker is a player who can create space for herself and create more possessions for the Sky. So that's something that they're going to need their offensive rebounding percentage numbers, when I post my weekly stats, they have consistently fluctuated between 10th and 12th in a league of 12 teams. So if you have a player like Parker who can go to the offensive glass, and Jontel Lavender is another player like that too, but Cheyenne Parker is really key for generating those possessions, extra possessions, and one and dones on the defensive end.
I agree. It's kind of funny, or not funny, but like one thing I noticed is that like when Cheyenne started to kind of trend downwards, like Jontel Lavender started to trend upwards in that respect, and like especially defensively, there was a while where. Like there was a point where the Sky just couldn't take away some of those inside buckets, and Cheyenne coming off of the bench, I mean, I think she was averaging 1.6 blocks per game at one point, while Steph and Jantel were like 0.6 and 0.8 respectively. I mean, they kind of needed that defense, and that, I don't know, she has like a certain tenacity that you just got to love out of her game. In terms of the backcourt, though, going back to like what you said about Kalia Copper, I also agree like that she has done incredible this season, and just her ability as like someone who can get to the line, I feel like that's so valuable for the Sky. But then you got to look at like what Gabby Williams has done, as as it's gone around in Sky Twitter, Point Gabby. She did great when she was in that role, and now you bring Jamira Faulkner back, who was one of the 3 players left on the 2014 Finals team, and then you also have Chloe Jackson, who's that second round project that you have, and not to mention the most underrated point guard of all time, and Courtney Vandersloot. I mean, this backcourt is just so crowded. I mean, how is James Wade going to manage that? Does it worry you? Like, do you feel like they have too much depth in the backcourt to really make sure this thing is clicking, or do you think this team is just not even focusing on that right now, and they're just going to step up when their name is called?
I'm really not worried about that. James Wade's proven himself to be a player's coach. He had the reputation when he came on board, and you can see it in press conferences, in the play during games, in how the players react to him and how they react to each other. That's the first thing. He's a player's coach, so he's going to ride the hot hand during games. With practice, he's really feeling out his players. They're still probably feeling him out as well. But he's just feeling out what the chemistry looks like and how they can use that going forward. The second thing is, this is pretty much a new team. They went through, this is, like you said, Jamira Faulkner is one of the only players, if not the only player left from that finals team from 2014. And only she and Courtney and Steph, or no, sorry, not Steph. I think it's she and Allie and Courtney are left from the Wilkie Chapman tenure. And so you have those 2 years with Amber Stocks, and now you have James Wade coming on with Katie Lou, with Gabby, and with the new players, the 2 rookies, and Diamond DeShields. This is basically a new team. And with new teams and figuring out things under a new coach and kind of a new chemistry and new rotation, you don't have that disease of more that gets to some teams that either get to the playoffs and miss the finals, or get to the finals, or win a championship. The year after that they hit their first peak is really when you see what teams are made of in terms of chemistry and their commitment to focusing on getting to the top of their league. Well, who's asking for more playing time? Who wants a larger role in the offense? Things like that. So I don't think you're going to see something like that. Players are always going to be, especially in the WNBA where the pay is unfortunately much lower than it should be, players are always going to be looking for the best situation for them in terms of pay and in terms of location, in terms of how they fit, things like that. But this team is still coming together. But
that's the weird part of this. Isn't it, though? Like, the Sky's timeline right now, I mean, they have these group of veterans, and I kind of tweeted this out today in a conversation I had with the Sky show Shy. It's impossible to say. But he said, he was just talking about how he wants to see Katie Lou Samuelson in some of these games more. She just hasn't had that opportunity to really play expanded minutes. And, I mean, I just feel like there's like, we have this veteran group, or not we, the Sky have a veteran group that wants to win now, but then there's these rookies that are still trying to get adjusted to the W. And I mean, it's weird because I just feel like you have the veterans in Jamira Faulkner and Sloot. You kind of have like those middle veterans, like middle tier veterans, or like who've only played a couple years, like Kalia Copper and Gabby Williams. And then you have like the rookie and Chloe Jackson. It's just like a very it's a broad spectrum in terms of like what we can see from the front court this season. What I like about James Wade is that he is a great in-game coach, and he really, I mean, it feels like he's thinking about a new lineup every minute that passes by in these games, and I trust him with the personnel also. It's just you got to be able to like make sure everybody's happy, and it kind of seems like the rookies like Katie Lou and Chloe Jackson are just going to be sitting around or playing 5 minutes a game this season. But yeah, no, it's going to be interesting to see how he adjusts the lineups, or if he's going to just keep rolling with the bench mob, as Twitter has been quick to name the Sky bench this year. But Chris, one thing that caught my attention after last week's episode that I did was an SI article on Vanderquigs and how they make the relationship work on and off the court. What caught my attention, though, during the piece was this excerpt that I saw. So this is what it said. They being Vanderquigs, they also have aligned their WNBA contracts. In 2019, they're on one-year deals, which they stress is not a sign they want to play anywhere but Chicago. They just want to maximize their options. They just want to maximize their options. I mean, Chris, oh my God, like, are we up to lose Vanderquigs right now? I mean, is the only rational takeaway from this is that they're leaving the Sky? I mean, honestly, I can't imagine that. But crazier things have happened in sports. So just tell me, where is Vanderquigs going now that they, without no question, are bolting from Chicago and heading elsewhere after this season?
All right, let's bring it back just a little, bit. I read that article too, and it was great. Just overall, I've got to look that up because I want to give the author of that article some props. It was excellent. It was excellent to read about their courtship and about their time overseas and the difficulties that they both went through while they were in the beginning stages of their relationship. Not only getting used to each other as people on and off the court, but dealing with the communication when you're playing in Croatia and Hungary, and then when you're playing in, I think, Croatia to Russia. There was a point in time where the trip went from 4 hours to like 10, where they just could not see each other when they had time off. But like I said before, when you're playing for a league that does not have a high pay scale, you've got to maximize your options. You just have to. And so, as ungodly as it would be for fans and even for people who cover the team, who appreciate the team like you and I, to not have one or both of these players on the team, they do have to maximize their options and see what might happen. Because Courtney, the forever underrated, has been in the league since, is it 2010, 2011?
2011.
So it's been almost a decade, and Allie even longer than that. So Allie, at this point, her career, it's not that her career is winding down, but I think they're both mature enough players to see where they are at this point in life. And when you're playing at home for 4 months, 5 months, and then you get on a plane to somewhere in Europe or China, Asia, wherever, and you're playing there another 4 or 5 months, it's going to take a toll on you. In terms of WNBA teams that might have a look for them, Atlanta's interesting to me, just because they have this whole situation with Angel McCautry, but they have some promising pieces, and they have room for those two guards, a spot-up shooter and a real point guard floor general. Angel McCautry is a great player, but she consistently leads the league in turnovers. So having a player like Vanderquigs who could draw some of the usage rate off of her, I think would help them. Now, that depends on if they keep Angel McCautry, which has been a subject of debate. But I think it would be interesting to have those three in the backcourt who could run on the floor at any one time. And the one thing for me is that it would be far from Courtney's family in Washington, so I don't know if it would go that way. But that would be an interesting team statistically. Seattle would be another one. They could kind of rotate Allie into a bench or a start. She could fluctuate between those two positions once Breanna Stewart comes back. Courtney might be in the same role playing behind Jewel Lloyd and Jordan Canada, so I don't know exactly how that would work for her, because those are two players who are still developing their talents, and I don't think the Storm would want to, if they had Courtney Vandersloot, she would not get nearly as much playing time as she does now. It would probably be 15 minutes a night at most, and that would reduce her effectiveness. So I don't think that Seattle would be a great landing spot for her there. So it would really be between, I think, Atlanta, possibly teams that are kind of trying to play for next season. So Atlanta, possibly Dallas, and maybe Seattle if they had to flip a coin, or if the two players really decided it, like, hey, this is where we want to go, the Storm would be an option. But let's be real. Chicago's the best place for it.
It really is. Like, all jokes aside, and I'm sorry for that hyperbole at the beginning of this, I don't see a clear-cut fit for this tandem. Just get up and go without a lot of maneuvering from another team. And Atlanta was one of the teams I thought of for some reason, like off the top of my head. And then the second one I thought was Indiana could be a fit just for one, like, just in terms of where they are statistically. Like, they aren't the best three-point shooting team, and they don't facilitate the ball as well as other teams in the league, but they also aren't really going to give up on Kelsey Mitchell and Erica Wheeler, or even like Tiffany Mitchell. Like, I feel like they're pretty secure where they're at there. So I don't actually want to entertain this thought, but I did come up with one crazy scenario in which I didn't really account for contracts and just thought about the fit and how it could be kind of interesting. That team is the Phoenix Mercury, where they could play small ball offense around Bonner and Griner, and they could just light up teams offensively. So the way I think this could work is that, like, Diana Taurasi and Allie Quigley would both free each other up, like, from like the suffocation on the perimeter that their opponents give them night to night, and just kind of having Sloot open up the floor with, you know, her all-time passing ability. I don't know. I feel like that would be a dream come true to have all those three players, and you can just, I think Diana would have to play the three. I mean, Allie Quigley's strong, but I could also, I think Diana could defer to the three. It'd just be interesting to have all that shooting power and then have the physical power of, like, DeWanna Bonner and Brittany Griner. I think that would be a really interesting team together, just, again, not based on the contracts or anything, but just based on the fit, but also because of the limited window with Diana Taurasi, you know, and how Vanderquigs could maximize that window with their veteran presence. I mean, Allie is, I think, 33 and Courtney's 30. Maybe she's 31 now, but I think she's 30. So it's a crazy thought, but I think, like, Phoenix kind of has to think outside of the box a little bit with, you know, the GOAT getting up there in age, and maybe Quigley could also just step into that role once Diana, you know, is retired, and she could just be the 3-point marks woman that, you know, that Diana's been her whole career in Phoenix. So that would be a crazy one. I thought of Phoenix too, but I also think they're going to buy in with Jordan Canada and Jewel Lloyd. I mean, that's a really fun backcourt that once Stu Bird, like, officially retires, you know, it's going to be cool to see Jordan Canada. I mean, she's just absolutely destroyed the Sky this season. Like, I don't know if you've watched all three of the Seattle Sky games, but oh my God, Jordan Canada's defense against Sloot is just impossible. Like, I don't know how Sloot was able to do anything against Seattle just because Jordan Canada was just an absolute monster. But yeah, hey, Courtney and Allie, don't leave Chicago, because that's clearly the best fit, and that's totally my unbiased opinion that I'm just going to roll with for now. But now that we are, like, past the All-Star game, we can finally get back to our weekly relevant stat segment that we do on the show. So it will only feature 2 matchups this week, but they are pretty substantial because they're going up against, they being the Sky, are going up against the Aces and Sparks this upcoming week. So what Chris and I are going to do is give one relevant stat heading into each matchup and who we think is going to win that matchup. So, Chris, what is your relevant stat heading into the Sky's game on Friday against the Aces?
I was going to be a wag and say road winning percentage, since the Sky are 1-4 against the West on the road. But I'm going to be more true to the format. When Liz Cambage 11 or more, I think they are either 10-4 or 11-4. They're 10-7 overall. I mean, there's been a couple of games where she didn't play, but they're at a 333 winning percentage when she only has 10 shots or less than 10 shots. One of those games was actually the game that the Sky lost.
Yeah.
But they did fairly well at limiting her touches. They just had trouble with Dearica Hamby, as every team has trouble with Dearica Hamby. So you really want to make sure that they don't get easy baskets. And one interesting thing that I found in terms of shooting defense, the Sky are pretty good at limiting opponents' efficiency really close to the basket. They give up a lot of shots within 5 feet, but the opponent's shooting percentage, I think, is the best in the league at that distance. They give up either the most shots or the second most shots, but they have the best shooting, defensive shooting percentage in that area. So you want to limit Liz Cambage because she's getting a little bit more demanding of the ball, which is good. The Aces need that. I was surprised that she wasn't doing that early in the season. And you have to slow down A'ja Wilson, obviously, and then turn them into a jump shooting team. That's going to be your best bet for success. If they get easy baskets, if A'ja Wilson can get to and below the free throw line, it's really tough to stop Las Vegas. If you put them on the perimeter, you're going to have a better chance of success.
And even then, the Aces are just so good. I mean, Kayla McBride, I can't get enough of Kayla McBride. She's so good.
Pure shooter. Absolute pure shooter.
But I agree. I mean, I think we've seen a trend in the Sky season that, and you got to really credit James Wade for this. And I mentioned this point a couple times in the previous shows, but the Sky are just really good at limiting the stars from going off. I mean, they do best when they stop those stars from really going off. Like Jonquel Jones, that when the Sky went against Connecticut, in the first matchup, I think she only took 9 or 11 shots. And you can look back at Dewana Bonner's stats too, and it's just not letting stars explode. And that's something that the Sky really do well with. And I do think that the front court isn't as, there wasn't that many changes besides Jantel Lavender in the offseason with what they did in the front court. So defensively, they're using kind of the same players. They're just, James Wade's maximizing all of their abilities on defense. So yeah, no, being able to limit Liz Cambage is going to be huge. She is someone that, the Aces have 2 of the 6 players last year who were averaging 20 points per game. And they've declined, but they still, A'ja Wilson and Liz Cambage can go off for 20 points at any point in a game. So yeah, no, I agree. I think that limiting Liz Cambage is going to be huge. It's for every team, limiting Liz Cambage is going to be a big problem. The only time that you can really stop Liz Cambage is if she waves off Kayla McBride and starts tries to play point guard like she did in the All-Star game. But my key stat for this game. Oh yeah, what were you going to say?
Just another thing about Cambage. The Las Vegas defense is going to be always tough.
Yeah.
And the Sky are one of the best offensive teams in the league, but they're going to have to find creative ways to score, and they're going to have to do something that they don't typically do, which is get to the free throw line. Defensively, with Liz Cambage, you and I and everybody who watches the league on a regular basis knows that she can get frustrated. So if you can frustrate her with fouls, if you can get her into a compromising position in the paint and get her into foul trouble, or if the Sky can defend her well enough so that she starts asking for calls, it's not that she's going to turn off completely. We've seen that where she'll have a tough first half or a tough first quarter and then get into the flow of the game. But that's something that can work to their favor. If you get a player like Liz out of joint, then they'll have some success. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you just said. My key stat for this game, though, is that the Aces are allowing the 3rd most points per game to opposing bench players this season. So, overall, in terms of the opposing team, their bench, they give up the 3rd most points to opposing benches. So, we just talked about this at the top of the show, but it's the Sky's strength right now, just that depth, and it gives James Wade options to just try to stop the star power of the Aces. That's going to be so hard. And the Sky held their own against the Aces last time out, but they only played 4 of their bench players due to injuries and DNPs. And I think Wnba she was in Europe at that point. Now the team is fully healthy, and they can kind of take advantage of their depth against the Aces. I hope that Nador is going to be able to help stop that high-low game that Liz and Asia just do so well together. I mean, I don't know how anyone's going to stop that when the playoffs come around, because anytime I watch the Aces, and I would say the Sky and the Aces are the teams I watch the most, just because the Aces are just so fun to watch. I don't know how anyone's going to stop that tandem of Liz Campage and Asia Wilson. They're just so good. But who would you take in this game? Like when I think the Aces are coming to town to Chicago, like who do you think is going to win this matchup?
Would have been the Aces' first trip to Chicago, and the Sky's record at home, barring that three game stretch where they really didn't play well. I would still take the Sky here. It's tough for them against one of the best teams in the league. Not the best team in the league. They're not the best team in the league. I want to make that clear in my time on air on this podcast. But they are one of the best teams in the league. So it's going to be difficult. But the Sky get up at home. They just do.
Yeah.
This is still a league with what we've seen from travel, and I know that's coming up later in the show. But this is still a league where travel matters. So if you're playing on the road, there's going to be a tangible difference when you're playing at home and when you're sleeping in hotels and flying commercial rather than just at home. So I'm going to take the Sky home. It'll be close. But I think they'll win give them 4 points or 5.
I think that the Sky are either going to, it's going to be a close matchup that they win, or that they just kind of fall apart against the Aces. I love Skytown, but I'm just not betting against the Aces this season. I'm with you. I honestly think that the Mystics and Aces are just shoo-in teams to make the finals. I know that's not a hot take. In fact, that's a pretty cold take. But anything can change, and anything can change down the road and everything. But right now, I got to ride with the Aces. I'm so impressed with that team is doing, and how Lambier has been able to really coach Asia Wilson and connect with Liz Campage. But you're right. I mean, the Sky are just a tremendous team at home, and all of their woes have come on the road mostly. So I think it could be a close one, but I can't bet against the Aces right now. They're just so good. What is your second relevant stat with this guy set to face the Sparks later on this week?
Well, this is difficult because the Sparks, looking at their record, they are one of, if not the hottest team in the league right now. They've won 6 of their last 7. Candace Parker's back with the team. But I'm a defensive-minded person, so I got to go back to defense. And Nico Ogumuke, I think I screwed that up. I apologize. But Nico Ogumuke is one of the best players in the league. She's the best statistical player on the team right now. Candace is still working her way back from her time off. And when she shoots, she has 13 field goal attempts or less. Los Angeles is 4 and 5. So right now they're 13 and 8. So again, and it was with Liz Campage, if you limit one of their best players, then you're going to have a better chance. Now in this, it's even more pronounced because. So yeah, and it was great because I checked this. So Nanika Olgomike, best player on the Sparks, unquestioned by far. Even you have 6 players averaging in double figures, but when you put up 16 and nearly 10 rebounds a night with almost 2 assists, 2 steals, and shooting almost 50% from the field, 83% from the line, that's a complete player. Candace Parker is a Hall of Famer, but she's still working her way back into the rotation. Chelsea Gray is a good player as well, but she's not a player that you look at with that you orient your defense around. So Nanika is just that type of player that you have to limit. And so if you limit her touches, if you play good enough defense where she doesn't get to the free throw line a lot, she only, according to the stats that I've got, she only shoots three free throws per game. But if you keep her off the line, and if you keep her touches, and you limit her touches, you're going to have a better chance of success. And in this instance with the Sparks, it's not like the Aces where you have to pick your poison. If you shut down this one player, you're going to have a much better chance. When they went out to Los Angeles, they did not do that.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I'm still trying to recover from the point that you said that Candace Parker isn't the best player on the Sparks. I know you're talking about statistics,
Not just this year.
Of course. No, I hear you. Still trying to shake that one off, though. Oh, my God. No, I agree with you. I mean, she has been great for the Sparks this season, and, I mean, she is the key. I just think that anytime... I think just that Candace Parker is just really starting to get it going now, and that I always think that she's going to be the key no matter like whatever whatever her condition of health is. But no, I agree with everything that you said. I just think that you said you're a defensive minded guy. I mean, that kind of goes into what I was saying for my relevant stat, and it's that the Sparks are the worst 3-point shooting team in the W as of right now, and the Sky are the second best. But also that LA's opponents also shoot 14% better when when LA loses compared to when they win. So I do think it all comes down to stopping the Sky on the perimeter. I mean, all it takes is one Allie Quigley game to just destroy a team, and the Sparks are kind of vulnerable in this area, not being able to shut down those type of players. And I mean, that has to be on Derek Fisher's mind as we head into this one. I mean, who do you think wins this one though? Like Sparks Sky, because I think it could be close, but part of me kind of feels like it's in the Sparks' hands. But what do you think?
I have the same feeling, unfortunately. When the only other game during the season was a 20-plus point blowout, it's hard to shake that off. The Sky, Stephanie Dolson went scoreless in that game, and she got into foul trouble, which is a bit troubling. So I want to see if James Wade switches the lineup around to give Cheyenne Parker a lot of time. And she played relatively well. She only had 6 points on 11 shots, but she got 11 rebounds. So it'll be interesting to see if he starts Cheyenne over Steph, since she obviously had a difficult time last time. But I do have to go with the Sparks on this one. Candace has had more run time since then, and they're really rounding into their true form. I can't give a score, but I think this one might have a bit wider of a margin. I wouldn't be surprised if the Sparks win by 10 or at least 8. Now, if the Sky do win, it's going to come from that offense, and it'll probably be a shootout. And then if they can shut down Nanika, fine. If they can't, it'll be a shootout and take your chance to see if we can just score more points than they can put up before 40 minutes have elapsed. But it would probably be a 2-point, 3-point game if the Sky win.
Yeah, I do think if the Sky do win, they're going to score like 90 to 100 points. And they've shown that they can do that this season, you know? Like, I think that's definitely possible, but the first Sparks game I ever saw was one where Candace Parker just did everything on both sides of the ball. And I talked about this with Chris Kwasinski a couple weeks back, but she almost, they were blowing out the Sky so much that she almost dunked it. She didn't at the end. She yelled out, nah, in terms of not risking it. But if she gets back to peak Candace form, even 90% of Candace Parker is better than most players in the league. It's just going to be hard for Chicago to win this one. I could see this being a slugfest though. It would be really, maybe this can be the game where Diamond really just has a breakout performance against Candace Parker. I mean, I know she's not someone that needs extra motivation, but maybe going up against one of the greatest basketball players of all time in Candace Parker, maybe that can make her take it up a notch and just have one of those games where the young rising superstar goes up against, again, one of the greatest WNBA players of all time, really basketball players of all time. Just absolutely blown away anytime I see Candace Parker play. I mean, if the Sky are going to score 90 to 100 points, like I just said, I do think that Diamond kind of needs to score 20 to 25 points in this game, and I think that she's fully capable of doing that. But if the Sky are going to win, they're going to need that from her. And that's going to be kind of interesting as we move forward from this too. Is she going to be able to take over games against some of the best teams in the league? And I guess we're going to see it. And that's kind of the thing about this Sky team, right? Is that one night they will blow out Connecticut like we saw a couple weeks back, and then the next night they will kind of fall apart like we've seen against the Mystics with them this season. They just don't find ways to put it all together against some of the upper echelon teams in the league, and that's why I don't feel great about the Sky going into this one, because the Sparks are hot. We've talked about that, and I mean this could be an interesting playoff preview that we have set here against the Sparks. I think that the Sky and Sparks are the 4 and 5 spots in the standings right now, respectively. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I hope that we'll see something from just the offense. I feel like the defense has kind of reached its peak, or we know what we're getting from the defense. I just think that we don't know what we're going to get from the offense, and against a hot Sparks team, who knows? I think that's why I don't feel great about the Sky in this matchup, and that's why I kind of think the Sparks could pull away with this one, just with Candace kind of getting back to her form. But yeah, I do think this is going to be a cool playoff preview. I mean, Sparks Sky, I'd be game to see that in the first round. Maybe James Wade and co wouldn't want to, just because of how, that's a veteran team they're going up against. But
right, and neither of those teams wants to be in that single elimination round, either of those rounds.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I want to talk to you about this next thing. So last week, I rambled about how Catherine Engelbert might have missed an opportunity in not coming out with a statement about, how playing in travel conditions are at the top of her priorities. And this just happened right after Connecticut and it was a Connecticut Sun versus the Chicago Sky. The Sky had a 10-hour traveling delay, and a lot of the players didn't get in until 4:45 a.m. So I guess I just wanted to ask you, because I really haven't had a chance to bounce this off anyone. What do you think she should have done? Because there's a part of me that thinks... Here, actually, I'll hold off on my opinion, but, do you think she should have laid low after a successful All-Star Game weekend? That just had a lot of positivity surrounding it, and maybe she just wanted to, coast off of that? Or do you think she should have, over-communicated to the fan base and the rest of the league that she is committed to fixing these issues that interfere with the product on the court?
Well, it's difficult to articulate for me, just because I listened to your argument that you made on your podcast last week, and it was pretty salient. This is an issue for every team in the league, even though it hasn't necessarily affected every team yet. When you have a team like Las Vegas last year that has to forfeit rather than play a game, that's not good for your product. So Kathy Engelbert was brought in here because she's a successful CEO. She's a successful businesswoman. She's a successful business person, period. And so not only does the WNBA want to maximize the reach of their product, they want to maximize their product. And their product is the players, and the product is the players playing the games. So if the players aren't playing, or if the players aren't playing to their best because of avoidable circumstances, that reflects badly not only on the league, but on the people running it. So now they have a commissioner in place that is an established chief executive officer that is known to be successful. It's not that I think she should have said something specifically, and it's the commissioner's job to as you said, control the narrative. That was a space where she definitely could have controlled the narrative in a better way. But when she came out on her introductory press conference, which was a little bit more than a month ago, she did, if someone obliquely, address the fact that player experience has to be better, and she did say the travel issue. Now, it still stands to reason what that's going to mean. And the collective bargaining agreement negotiations are going to be really, really, really telling. The league doesn't have too much standing from my perspective, from my point of view. The league really doesn't have a lot of standing and a lot of leverage that they can use in these negotiations to keep the travel at the same level that it is. So I'm not sure what they're going to be able to do. But I don't necessarily think that she needed to come out with a statement, because I don't know what their options were on that statement. If you come out and say, well, you can't say we apologize. This is a thing that I hate in business, but you can't apologize, because then you give yourself up to liability. But what else? I don't know exactly what else she could have said other than address this, because then the question becomes, what are you doing in that tireless work? So it's tough, because I really want her to succeed, and she's in a bit of a bind with how the league is now, and the increase of reach, and hopefully, so we're all crossing our fingers that the league is more profitable for all 12 teams, or at least a majority of those 12 teams. But I don't see exactly where she could have said something or what she could have said. It's a difficult situation for her to be in. As the commissioner of a professional sports league, which I think any of us would love to do, she was really in a no-win situation.
Yeah, and I get that too, and I guess I care less about how the upper management in the WNBA is really like how they're perceiving things. I guess I was really just looking at it from the players and fan standpoint. I just still think that acknowledging the problem that it exists and just like controlling it and just saying that if someone comes out with an article saying, the WNBA has to address this problem and it's been lingering on for this long, that would have been nice in the paragraph, like the next paragraph, just being like, and this is what Kathy Engelbert had to say about the situation, so that it's just not like when people who read about this stuff, especially people who don't keep up to date on WNBA content and just see like, oh, this is something that came up, this is actually something that exists. She could have had that statement in that, like in an article, just saying like, yes, just over communicating the idea of like, yes, we want to acknowledge this problem. There's nothing that we can do right now until we get to CBA negotiations. But this is a problem, and we want you, the fans and the players, to know that this is something that's on the top of my priorities. I don't think that would have hurt them. I mean, I'm just saying, like, we want to, even doing something like, or saying something like that, just trying to, I don't know. I just feel like she's a really key player in CBA negotiations. She has to be the one that really is going to kind of be in between the players and the owners here. And, it wouldn't have hurt her in terms of like, because the players are going to come after the league hard. It wouldn't have hurt to just have that. I don't know if it's solidarity, but just like, the players are like it. It's not. They don't have to go back to one news like press conference that said that she cares about the issues. That she can continue to display that she is like really cares about this issue and that she's not just someone that the owners can really rely on to just focus on their interests. Maybe it's a little too harsh, but I just came out of that game with Connecticut, and I mean, that clearly affected their play. And especially like Cheyenne Parker, we talked about her. I mean, you could kind of tell she was one of those players affected by that tiredness. She said after the game that it's unhealthy to, play basketball after traveling, for that long and just laying around, letting your muscles like tense up like that. It just felt wrong that no one said anything. And but at the same time, I get where you're coming from too. I mean, it is a business, and they do have to look after the owners who put money into this every year. So like, I get it, but at the same time, it just felt weird that nothing was said, and like there was like nothing from anyone in the league about it. But I just felt like it was a missed opportunity, not like she should. Like, I guess it's not even that like she should have said it, I guess, but it just felt like a missed opportunity and like stopping the tension between the players and owners, because I just worry about like what CBA negotiations are going to look like. It just seems like it could go sour pretty quick. But actually, there's one last thing that I didn't mention to you on the outline that I gave you before this. So maybe I'll just edit this out, but I'm curious this came up like in the last like 30 minutes before the podcast. So I just wanted to run it by you. So like the WNBA trade deadline didn't really feature a ton of moves. And I mean, I feel like a lot of that can be attributed to a lot of teams just being set where they are. But on the other side of this though, a big part of the fan experience is like tracking these transactions and hoping to see like big unexpected moves. Do you feel like just in terms of the overall like spectrum of like the WNBA where we're at, do you feel like the WNBA, like does the WNBA suffer by the fans not being able to engage in like trade rumor discussions or trade rumor mill discussions?
Well, I think that's a byproduct of when leagues get to the point of where they can afford to work that into their main methods of building rosters.
Yeah.
And that's the case for that's the case mainly baseball is still the really big summer rumor mill, and when it comes to trades like the free agency deadline, and somewhat in the NBA in that basketball league, but it's not a thing that really happens too much in the NHL. It happens to some degree, but you don't see it happen too much. And even over the off season, restricted free agency contracts or restricted free agency offer sheets aren't really a big thing in the NHL. I was talking to a friend of mine who knows more about it, and watching a couple videos. In the NHL, there's a weird gentleman's agreement that RFAs pretty much stay put. That's only been transgressed, I think, very recently, either this year or just up until last year. And those are leagues who have a ton of history with the NHL. It goes back further than even the NFL or NBA. So not having a big trade rumor mill, a lot of grist for the fans to ooh and ah over. I think it might look a bit thin in comparison to NBA free agency, which basketball fans go nuts over, and rightly so. It's exciting. But the mid-season trade deadline being fairly quiet, that's not a big focus for the league right now, both from the league perspective and from the team's perspective. I think they really, really should be, and for the most part are, trying to focus on maximizing what they have and working that talent to put the best product out that they can, notwithstanding the few teams that are looking towards the draft for next season. But I don't think not having a lot of excitement at the mid-season trade deadline, I don't think that hurts the league that much.
I'm so torn with this because this wasn't like an idea that I came up with. I just saw it. I forget which article I saw that on, but I think there's an argument to be made that it does kind of hurt the WNBA experience a little bit. I go back to the offseason when Liz Cambage demanded a trade, or there was rumors about her being traded to Las Vegas. And it wasn't just like the WNBA community was exploding, but like other major outlets were just going nuts over this, and they were creating content around it. And I just kind of feel like we need that in terms of like getting some traction with the fans here. I kind of think we need more of this. And I think the NBA is an interesting comparison just because, the NBA Finals ratings were down last year, and you would never have expected that based on how the free agent frenzy conversations happening on Twitter, like how those went down. It just kind of feels like there are a lot of people that are more into the drama of that league that then keep up to with all these games that happen night to night. And the WNBA is kind of like the opposite of that, where we tend to focus on what's happening on the court, and there's not really a ton of outside noise that's positive with the league. All of the outside noise, I feel like, kind of comes with the negative things about the WNBA, about how its lack of marketing, how the website's dysfunctional, all the negative things that are that surround the league. I mean, equal pay is a huge problem, and the revenue sharing. So a part of me feels like, man, it would be so cool to just have kind of have some discussion circulating around. I mean, going back to I mentioned Brian, or the Sky Show Shy, he mentioned something about, he had a poll up that said, are we going to even see one trade this year? Or are we going to see no trades? And I think the poll ended with their people voting on they thought there would only be there would be no trades happening. And it was a 50-50 split, but it's just really, we can't generate anything from this. And again, I understand this is not a part of the league's priorities, but if I am Kathy Engelbert, I'm trying to think about how to make some noise and as much as possible. And the WNBA and Twitter isn't exactly great at putting up content, putting up a ton of replays and a lot adding to the fan experience. So I don't know. I kind of I hope down the road, and when the product is really grown domestically, that maybe we can see something like this that we see in the NBA where people kind of go crazy on Twitter about it. I know that the players kind of get stressed out when they see their name thrown in all these trade rumors, but like it would be kind of interesting to add that dynamic to the league, just especially of like how many personalities we have in the WNBA and how great they are. And it would just be cool to see like how that is going to be worked in. But as of right now, that's like the last thing the WNBA really needs to be worrying about right now. But so as we wrap this up, is there anything else you want to add? Is anything you want to like plug before we end the phone call?
Well, of course, as a still aspiring journalist that's on the hustle, I want to ask everybody to read my Above the Clouds column that comes out on mostly every week, on a pretty regular basis every week. It's on weareregalradio.com. So follow We Are Regal Radio, Regal Radio at Regal Radio 1. They always, once my articles are up, they're always published towards the end of the week, Thursday or Friday. So this one should be coming out on Friday. I love covering this team, so I'm going to put my heart and soul into that. And then you can follow me on Twitter for any Chicago Sky just updates. If I'm at the game, I'll try and put out updates during the game. So follow me at Quandary Kitten. That's KWANDARY Kitten on Twitter. Be forewarned, that's my main Twitter handle. So you're going to get a lot of tweets about how the president's an idiot and how the government is doing things horribly. But you're also going to get a lot of Chicago Sky content too. And then, as we've been in this melting pot this season, just follow everybody. Like you mentioned, the Sky Show Shy, Eric Nemchak is a great resource.
Oh, yeah.
Greg Gardner, Howard Megdal, all the people who are covering the WNBA and who are covering women's basketball. So follow all those people. Her Hoop Stats has been great for me. An article that I'm working on that I want to publish at some point in the future about women's college ball and the divide between, say, the top 10 teams in a season and the rest of the top 25. But Her Hoop Stats is an indispensable resource, even though they only cover college stats. It's great to have. So follow me for sure. Read my writing, and I appreciate you, James, for bringing me on here. But follow everybody else. Everybody deserves a shot, and if we help each other out as media professionals, that's going to increase the reach of the league. So,
yeah, Chris, I could not agree more, man. Seriously, I thank you for creating the content that you do. It's, most of these people don't get paid in the WNBA to create the content that they do. So, really, thank you for the content that you've been coming out with this season, and thanks for coming on. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thanks a lot, James. All the best to you.
All right, have a good one. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of the Skyhook. As always, if you want to contact anyone involved with the show, you can always do so at the skyhookmailbag@gmail.com, or you can tweet at me at my handle, which is James_M_KAY, or tweet at the show's handle on Twitter, which is at Skyhookin. And if you missed the first half of the show, or you just got to tune in because you're neglecting your work duties, you can always find the archived version of the show on Podbean or Apple Podcast by simply typing in the Skyhook Podcast in either of those search engines. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of this show, and until next time, my friends.